if you're there, and I knew that if there was something there, that anybody on the other side, if there was another side, knew I didn't know. And I'm like, I don't know. I have nothing to hide. I need help. I need you to take this from me because I don't know how to do this. Nothing is stopping this addiction.
Welcome to Prioritize Your Life and PrioritizeYourLife.com. I'm Wesley Lappioli, and our guest today is Nate Hales. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Today, something that we haven't talked about in depth, and I feel like you have a very singular experience, but what your experience helped you with, I feel like is probably, I don't have any other way to define it, as one of the many plagues in our earth. Knowing a little bit of what you've experienced, I'm so grateful that you're able to come and to share, because I know there's people that are going to need to hear what you have to say, that are trying to pull themselves out of one different form of addiction or another. So thank you so much. And with that, I'll just turn the time over to you to share.
Thanks. Yeah. I know a little bit about addiction, and I think that's probably one of the reasons you and I are talking right now, and I think it's important to shed some light on what happened with me, and I'm hoping that it can help other people. And my experience is not that unique for certain groups of people, but it's pretty unique for the type of people that I used to be. I don't know if that's a proper way to say it, but I'm not a professional actor or anything. Part of my experience is pretty sensational in a way, and if I saw it and I was watching this, I would be, I know I watch a lot of other stuff that I'm like, I don't know. If somebody's had an experience like this in broad daylight without drugs or meditation or without dying, because what happened to me was a lot like a near-death experience, and that's actually how I found your channel. As I was looking for other people, I constantly do that throughout the years. I'll just look up near-death experiences, see if there's any new material out there, just so I can relate to what happened to me. So I'm aware that what I'm about to say, like I said, sounds normal to some people. It's going to sound like an alien abduction to other people. And you're welcome to put things in the comments below and criticize all you want, because I kind of have been on both sides. I've been a total atheist, and now I know that I'm a part of something bigger, that this world is a lot bigger place than just me, and just the knowledge that we're able to learn here on Earth. And I kind of know why there's this full immersion experience that I like to call it of Earth. We're not always connected to the other side, and there's very good reasons for it. And like I said, the full immersion is part of that. I don't plan on holding back a whole lot. I'm just going to say it like I remember it. And if it doesn't sit well with you, that's I understand that, as my brother Matt says, so a lot of us are running our own stories and our own narratives. And when somebody's speaking outside of that, they just, especially in the political arena, you can see it. We can't think of anything good on the other side, no matter what we do. And it's kind of sad, because if we unplug from our own stories for a minute, there could be value in what the other person's saying, even if you see them as your enemy or see them as, might see me as some religious fanatic who doesn't even care about science and all that, which I do. To my mind, science, true science, and God are the same thing. I don't see how they can even be different. Doesn't even make sense. So I'm not talking just about theories, but I'm talking about factual science, and God it's just all the same rules to the universe. If you don't believe in God, I just think you're missing out. I know what that feels like. I used to think God was Santa Claus, and so I would feel, like, well, these religious people aren't hurting anybody, and so why bother them, if they're having a good life? But it was always a lot like Santa Claus to me. I was like, if they need to believe that to feel safe and secure, they can. And so when people say that to me, I just kind of go, I know where you're coming from. Like, I really know what that feels like. But I would just say that they are the most immersed in Earth. So if you feel that way, you're really immersed in the experience. It's good for you. Like, it's pretty awesome. Earth is an awesome place. I think we should probably start with what kind of led to this experience, which I'll get to in depth, and that is my addiction. Early on in my life, I became addicted to slowly. I started drinking in high school, and then I was looking for other things in the cupboard and whatever we get our hands on. And I'm not going to mention drugs by name because I don't want to encourage other kids out there. They're like, oh, I hadn't tried that yet. So you won't be getting any new ideas from me right now. So
it just shows you probably know how someone like that thinks.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's, let's just say we raided the medicine cabinet a lot, and then we tried to get illegal drugs, and it got to a point where I was even, it goes slowly. The thing with kids in high school is they don't look at an adult like me as somebody who can even relate to them. They can't see past the senior year. They can't really see past the college kids, and it's kind of like a forest, and you can't see the future and project that well and realize that some of these adults on the side of the street are your friend, can be like people you're friends with now. I have people that I know have been homeless. I've been had some pretty rough times myself, and if it wasn't for my dad and my family, there's times I would have been homeless. And addiction is real, and it sucks, and nobody likes it. Even the addict doesn't like it. With that said, is when you kind of get trapped into the spiral, and then you can't get it legally, you go for illegal, and then you got to support the habit because you start, needing more money, and then you start stealing, and then you start dealing and doing whatever you can. And I found myself at the bottom of this pit. And was it a fun ride down? Did I have lots of cute girls and nice cars? Yeah, I lived a little bit of early 90s rock star lifestyle, I thought I was having the time of my life, but as anybody that knows with addiction, you unravel slowly. Most life happens within 7 feet off the ground, unless you're really tall, and everything happens within 8 feet off the ground. And so if I drew a picture of that, like on this paper, I'd say, okay, most things happen right here. And that's where you hold somebody's hand for the first time, your first kiss and all this. And it's awesome. And you go on a roller coaster, and it's awesome because you got kind of zoomed up on it. But when you take drugs, it spikes your dopamine so high that you're up in this plane, right? And if you've ever been in a plane, can you see the people on the ground? I mean, do you see them from a plane? Can you see this conversation right now from a plane? You can't. You're too high. And so it just really narrows it down to like you're looking through a straw, and the only thing that actually makes you feel normal is the spike. And pornography does this. Anything that's addicting. This is rehab stuff. This isn't just church stuff. But it spikes you clear up to the plane. And this is what it was doing to me. So the only thing that would bring me pleasure was the dopamine spikes. It actually got to where that's the only thing that made me feel normal. Addiction is more of a disease than you realize. And by the time you're trapped in it like I was, life can suck pretty bad. And you don't think you can get out of it. You want it more than you want to eat. And it can be, so even to feel normal, I remember, back to the story, is I'd come home like the prodigal son, about 23 years old. Dad, I'm going to die if you don't take me back in. I don't have anywhere else to go. I've just walked, probably 20 miles from the house I just got kicked out of, which was my brother. He's like, you got to go. So he kicked me out. I walked all night to my dad's house across town, and I just said, you got to let me stay here. I'm going to die. And I thought I might anyways. And I was just out of control. And I'd even stole money from my dad a lot. He took me back in, even after all that, which is pretty amazing. This is a hard thing because I've had my brother struggle with this. I've watched friends struggle with this. And sometimes you take your loved one back in and you're enabling them. And it's this really fine balance. How do you, and you're part of the problem because you're giving them more resources that they continue to use. Well, that's exactly what I continue to do. If you're talking to your loved ones, I don't think you should keep giving them money. I don't care what excuse they have. Sometimes we need to fall on our face and we need to be in total desperation. We're just out of control. And it's like, for those of you that don't understand addiction and true addiction, it's like, try not eating for 3 days. That's what it's like. And you get so hungry that you don't care about anything else. Just give me some food. Just give me the food. I would pop 30 pills before I'd walk into a church. And I remember some girl singing, I'm a child of God. And it's just sweet little 7, 8-year-old. She's like, I'm a child of God. And I'm like, I'm not. And I just started crying. I had to leave. I just like, if there's a God out there, he doesn't know me. He doesn't care about me. Maybe I've done too much. I don't know. I don't even know if I believe in one. But I was desperate to try anything because rehab was, I get thrown in jail. And I was just waiting to get out. And as soon as I get out, my dad would bail me out. Funny, your friends. If you got a friend that bailed you, that's a good friend. To you guys that never bailed me out, I don't blame you. You didn't have any money either, but you never bailed me out. My dad did, So he would bail me out in a second. And I'd try to call my friends as soon as I could and just to get to use again, So I was in this cycle and I couldn't shake it. And one day I was going home and I was going to go into the house and in my county, they had undercover police cars, and I knew exactly what they were. They were Chevy Corsicas, and they were maroon, and there was one parked in front of my house. I'm not going in the house, right? I'm like, I just like took my dog, Scruffy, little Scruffy, she's so cute. I was like, come on, Scruff, we're going on a walk. And I come from one of my many part-time jobs. My kids now are like, Dad, how do you know how to do everything? I'm like, well, temp services, you just get a job for 2 weeks or a week till you whenever you get that paycheck, you're done. It's a party, right? So you just work long enough to get the money and then you go. So I got trained in a lot of things. So I told, I was one of my jobs and I had like a pad and paper like this with me, and I was just a pencil, and I was just like, I don't know, he couldn't go in the house, didn't know where to put it, so I walked up on the mountain, and my dad lives kind of on a hillside where the mountain goes up. I ran into a neighbor friend of mine. His name was Bill Price, really good guy, and he's always walking on that canal road since I was a little kid, and I was in the middle of the day. I'm walking up, and no, I wasn't high as a kite. He'd seen me at church, and he says, I've seen you at church, I've seen you trying, and I think you need to keep moving forward. And several people kept saying that to me, like, it's good to see you. And I'm like, man, I'm like, this isn't like, you don't understand. I'm like, thanks for the encouragement, but all you addicts out there, anybody that's even stuck in this long to watch this, you just don't feel like there's ever any hope. There's no way out. He says something to me that's interesting. He says, you need to give it to Christ. You need to give it to the Savior. And I was like, well, I kind of feel like these guys have a glow about them. The church I still go to, they all have a glow about them. He says, give it to Christ. And I'm like, I don't even know what you mean. What do you mean, give it to him? I like, hand it to him? And do you give it to him? Just hand it to him? And he's like, no, you got to just ask him to take it from you. And I'm like, I'd heard of like the born again Christians and stuff. And like that kind of sounds a little hallelujah, like just take it from me. I was like, well, I'd yelled at the heavens before. I'm like, if there's a God, show me a sign, strike me down, just mad because of all of the trauma I'd gone through, self-induced a lot of it. But, and I never got an answer. No one's ever talking to me. But I think there's a key point here. God never answers my prayers. God never does this. It's like, well, I usually prayed when I was in the back of a cop car with handcuffs on. I'll never do it again. I'm never going to do it again. I promise. Just get me out of this. Like, I don't know that that's the most effective time to learn your lesson. I mean, you're in the back of a cop car and now you're reaching out. Second you get out of the cop car, you're back to the party, okay? So, and I think the Lord knows us better than we know ourselves. That's not even a thing. That's a fact. So, he says, give it to the Savior. And so I walked on down the dirt road. I walked on down this canal road. There wasn't any houses around. And I just got down on my knees, and I was, I'm just a normal dude. So I'm looking around. I'm like, is anybody else walking on this road? See me kneeling in the middle of the daytime. This is beginning, I don't want anybody judging me because I had such a great life already. I'm real worried about what other people think, So I'm literally looking around. I was like, well, there's nobody here. And the dog's there. I'm like, okay, I guess I'm going to kneel down. And I remember kneeling down in the gravel. Like, it kind of hurt my knees, like, okay, ow, and so I'm kneeling there on this kind of dirt gravel road with rocks in my knees a little bit, and I, this really happened, and I don't know how to explain it. I've heard other near-death experience people explain it, and I hear the doctors, they'll say, or, those smart people, the neuroscientists can say when you die, you release these chemicals, and that's what they see, the tunnel, and I'm like this, I didn't see a tunnel. Okay, but what happened to me is I knelt down on my knees, but I'm going to verify that all these people that see the other side, they're actually telling the truth. And I want to find out if there's somebody else out there that's had this happen in the middle of the day without dying. So I knelt down, normal, And all I did is offered a prayer. And I would say my state of mind, so that if you want to recreate this, because I don't think I'm special. And I told this to my kids. I think that anybody can have an experience like this. I was at the end of the sidewalk of my life at the moment. And I was just like, there was no more for me to go. No drug counselors, no rehabs, no jail, or no, amount of remorse for taking money from my father or stealing from people or drug dealing. And no amount of remorse for some of the crap I was doing was enough to stop this train. I was just there and I submitted. I just said, I don't know if anything's there. I don't know. And I knew that if there was something there, that anybody on the other side, if there was another side, knew I didn't know. And I'm like, I don't know. I have nothing to hide. If you're there, I need help. I need you to take this from me because I don't know how to do this. Nothing is stopping this addiction, and I don't know how to get through it. And at that moment, it was amazing. And I only hesitate and look down because sometimes when I tell this, it's people check out. I don't know if I brought you far enough into my world yet to have you actually be open enough to accept this, but I'm just gonna put it out here. I just felt hands on my head, like this, and they were behind me. And the second those hands hit my head, it wasn't like, who's there? It was like everything just, it was like being, if you were immersed in your favorite video game, like Call of Duty or Halo or something, and you actually believed you were the character, and you had the trauma of watching your friends get blown up next to you in the video game, and then all of a sudden you're like shaking, you're like, I can't do this anymore, I can't do this. All of a sudden you check out and you're you again, and you're in your room, you're like, oh, I'm okay. And there's all this familiarity. You're like, oh, I'm in my house, I'm home. It was like that. Everything, the world, it was all still there, still nailing on the road, but it was just like, I knew him, and I'd known him forever. And I was immediately talking to them, just like I'm talking right now, but with your mind. And it was just like, but it was weird. I was just like, I'm so glad you're, holy cow, Earth is, this is so, one of my first thoughts was like, I was trying to kill myself about a year earlier. I was trying to take my life. I'd been that low at some point that I was like trying to kill myself. And I was like, everything came back, and I remembered everything that, like, how Earth was, and I was in Earth, and I'd been at home, and I'd been in heaven. Was like, we call it heaven, but it's his home. And I was like, wow, I really couldn't see it. It's like right here. And wherever you're sitting watching this, it is literally like right here. Like, it's all around you. They're like right here. It's not like scary ghost stories. It's like, you're the one that's in the immersed into Earth experience and all this life stuff, and that's a gift. It's a gift that you don't get to know. It's a gift that I was detached, and so I had all this kind of sensation of like going, oh, okay. I wasn't even upset. I was like, I'm so glad you're here. Like, oh, thank goodness. It's like, this is awesome. And I was like, okay, and they literally were like, okay, you got to calm down, because I'm. People that know me, I am like this. This is normal Nate, and I am like this on both sides. They're just like, okay, we're gonna finish. You just gotta let us do our thing here. We're gonna fix your brain. And had you had an MRI hooked up to my head, you would have seen look at an MRI of somebody who's hooked on heroin, and then just all of a sudden, just have their brain kind of reshift. It was like putting Legos back together, and I could like physically feel it happening. It was like, and everything kind of came back, and I was thinking a lot like I did, like when I was a 12-year-old, 12 to 15 years old, before I really started on eat drugs or alcohol. My brain just kind of came back to that. I could tell I was just like, I had a healthy brain again. And it was like a process, though. It took a minute or so. I don't know how long it took, but they were definitely, it just happened. And I know how that sounds, okay? I know how that would sound to me. So I knew him forever. And I was wide awake. It was in the middle of the day. I had only other thing I can see is near-death experiences have this, maybe when they're operating table and they have a similar experience. Mine was just in the middle of the day. I don't think I'm special. I just think that I was in such a dark hole that when it connected, they were there, they fixed me, and maybe this is one of the purposes I'm still here. I don't know. When they were behind me, I could see them, but it's in a different way than just your eyes. It's more like, I've heard people describe it as like when they, you can almost see and taste and feel at the same time. It's like you're really connected with everything that's going on, with the light of truth. I'm sitting there, and they kind of finish what they're doing, and I'm kneeling on the road, and so to my right, I'm just like kind of sitting there, and I can kind of see, just like I can see in my peripheral vision in this room, and I didn't want to disrupt anything. I knew it wasn't a big deal. I was like, I'm just home. Like, this isn't any big deal. And I was like, I need to get back to, living my life here in a second. I know they're fixing me, and so I wasn't planning on, some people say, oh, I want to stay in heaven. I'm like, well, I wasn't real, I knew that wasn't even, I was just like, I'm going to finish life. This life is awesome. I was like, oh, it's kind of weird because thinking about the suicide attempt, this is going to sound different. But I actually looked at that trauma as a gift. It was like, no matter what bad thing I'd self-induced or anything I'd done to myself or any bad thing that happened to me as a child, just being able to have the experience of it and the empathy, the love and the empathy I have for anybody else that had been through it was a gift. It wasn't like all that trauma when you go back home is like, I now understand. And my dad suffered cancer and got really just chemo, radiation, and just couldn't even sleep. And he couldn't breathe one night, and he just told me, he's told me this before, but he saw people in the room. He's like, there's about 6 of them there. And then I started breathing again, but I knew they were there in the room. I knew they were right there, and I knew there were people I'd known. And I said, I'll bet you it was people who have been in that situation. They most empathize with what you're going through. And they're there for us on the other side, like constantly. So what did I see? I saw something to my right, and just somebody over there talking, and they were talking to some other people, and everybody was really busy. There's somebody else that talks about how busy it is there, and it was really busy. Like, it felt like I was Earth is like a rock concert, okay? Like I love rock and roll. Like if I could be a rock star on stage, like just jamming a guitar or singing like, Garth Brooks back in the day in his best concert where he's just out on the stage. He's like, yes, people, this is awesome. And you're part of that production, and all these people are a part of what's happening on Earth, and it's a really big deal, and it's exciting. So no matter how hard you're working, you're like, this is so fun. Like, this is awesome. You just would keep going because you have all this energy because it's such an amazing thing you're a part of. And I really sense that. So when this other person come over, which I would call like, just like a brother, like, they were like brothers, like warrior brothers. Like somebody said the word warrior when they saw they're like warriors. I'm like, they were so awesome. And an interesting thing is I definitely looked up to these guys, and I was like, you guys are like my most awesome older brother, my most awesome uncle I ever met. That's so cool. And I'm so glad you're here. Like some guy that can just save the day. And they were there, and I had that feeling that I realized that there is, it's how you know you've had a real experience. If you're in that situation, there's equality there. There's hierarchy, but there's definitely equality in hierarchy, because even though they were more experienced than me and kind of helping me through this process, going, okay, we're going to take care of this. And I was like, oh, heroes are here. I didn't feel any less. I felt very equal. So equality and hierarchy. Like if you're taking notes, write that down. Equality and hierarchy at home. It's not it's home. And I had the overwhelming feeling that we're all going to be okay. And that goes back to a dear friend of mine's daughter, who's a beautiful person. She lost her battle to cancer, but she had it so bad. They told a story at her funeral. They were having a Sunday lesson, and they were sitting there with the other kids, and they'd brought her home. She was 13 years old, and she was in the living room with her hospital bed, and they had this beautiful lesson, and she couldn't even really ask for water. She was that bad where she's like, couldn't ask for water. And they said, does anybody else have anything else they want to add to the lesson? Her name's River, and because I don't think her dad would care. So he says to her, he's like, imagine you're a 13-year-old kid. If you have a 13-year-old, I do. And he says, all of a sudden River speaks up and she says, I have something to say. And they're like, whoa, okay. She's been struggling to even ask for water. What do you have to say? And she says, I have three things to say. She says, the spirit world is real. It's okay to be sad and melancholy. And we're all going to be okay. And as soon as I heard that at the funeral, I knew, especially by the last one, that she'd already seen it. She'd already been home. And she was given a gift to come back and just deliver that message to her, because it was the last thing she said. She died the next day. And I sat in that same room that she was in, and I would not leave their house. This was just recently, and I said, I can't, I have to stay here. And I told them, I says, you can see me hanging out till everybody leaves. And it was probably 10 at night, and I was like, I don't know if this is intrusive, if it's too much right now, but I need to tell you what I know. I said, I've seen heaven, and I know that as soon as she said we're all going to be okay, that she'd seen it, and she knew the spirit world was real. And they were really caught up on the fact that she'd said it's okay to be sad and melancholy, because that's just not words she used. So they're like, wow, she's using this melancholy. Like, what's that? They kind of live in a rural town, and they just like, that's a pretty deep word for a 13-year-old, and we don't use that around here. So I was like, it was important to understand that she actually had been, it was that massive gift. So I was having this experience. I'm seeing heaven. Another guy comes over to talk to me, brother. Somebody just comes over, and I'm sure there were women there. I'm just saying that's what happened with me. Okay, I know there was many people there, and I remember him coming over, and then we just started talking. And one way you know that I think that it's actual vision, the thing I look for in a thing is when people say, I talked to them, but I don't remember their mouths moving. When I was talking, it sounded like English, and it was communicated to me in English. It was communicated to me that Christ was a savior. So if you're a Muslim or something else, and or another religion, Buddhist or something, and you don't believe in Christ and all that, and if you think this was all aliens, that's the way they presented it to me. If I got to the other side, I'm pretty open to whatever they're going to teach me. But at the time, it wasn't like, it was very much love and acceptance, and earth just made sense on the fact that I got to experience and learn things and learn pain, and everything was going to be okay. I even asked if I should go to the church that the missionaries had come from to teach me. And I remember, looking back on it, and the person I was talking to was just like, what did you, what? Like, it's like when you communicate, it's like a whole bunch at one time. It's like, you might say a sentence, but you can kind of see it three-dimensionally, and you understand you get a TED Talk for every sentence in a way of understanding. And so you kind of catch all those emotions, and even facial expressions are felt and heard in a way, and so it's like, he's like, you're not seeing everything around here? Like, yeah, that's fine. They're good people. And so it's this good communication. So I know the places that I go to church, they are good people. Like, they're awesome. We're here to fix you because this is really your only way out, Nate, because you're in a pretty big hole. So if you're in a pretty big hole and you've never gone out with anything else, you might want to start tapping into this, because it works. And I'm not favored. They were in I would say 28, maybe, ish, like very prime of life, just youthful, I would say, and awesome, just full of awesomeness and power and just coolness. If I was stuck in the woods and this guy, was it bear guy? What's his name? He showed up, and you're in the middle of the woods. You're like, I'm gonna be okay. You're like, the man of mans is here, And I'm like, but then you feel equal to him too. So it was definitely somebody I had always known too. So I wasn't surprised to see him. I was just glad to see him, and I knew him. So I was very familiar. But no, was it drug induced? Give me those drugs again, okay? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, go ahead, find me those drugs, right? Like, had all this new knowledge that I really didn't have before poured into my head. So we'll go back to where the second person came up to me that I knew very well, and just like, okay, let me tell you why you were a drug addict, and tell you what you're doing. Let me show your brain what you were doing wrong, and let's rewire it with some proper knowledge. And I think that if you're addicted to porn or something, this is also a really good technique that I talked to my son, not that he's addicted to porn, but I was like, if you want to, like, you can come to me and you say, hey, I want to quit looking at porn. I want to quit looking at this. I'm like, well, why don't you study how to get off of porn every day for like 30 minutes and don't ever stop. Like, read something that's hopeful about the brain, learn about the brain, and just study something every day. Get some new knowledge in your head, because just having, he has all this faith and going to church and everything, but I'm like, well, we've also been taught to kind of, a lot of us want to pray for our muscles, right? We say, hey, give me that six pack, and we don't want to go to the gym. Like, don't make me go to the gym. Like, so going to the gym's kind of the blessing of the life here. So you're going to go to the gym before you're going to get the abs. Now, maybe I'll show you, give you some motivational speakers, or maybe I'll give you some motivation on the perks of this. But you can educate yourself, because it's part of Experience Earth. That's how I kind of refer to it. I'm not cheapening anything. It's awesome. It's one of the greatest things that's going on that I could tell in the universe right now, because they were all really involved and so involved with everybody. Even right now, anybody watching this, they're very involved in what you're doing all the time, and it's not like an intrusive, judgmental way. It's really more like, look up, wake up, and So I started getting taught things, and I actually wrote them down. I had my pen and paper, and I was writing them down. I mean, it was kind of like I could just see how involved the other side is with every human. And this is gonna sound weird, but this really happened. Like, I just kind of was like lost in the thought of it all, and just seeing like the love for everybody. I was like, we're all so loved. We are all so loved. We're all so loved. This is all. How did I not see it? I already knew it. You already know this. But we don't realize it, because, again, that being cut off is part of the gift. And so they're all so loved. And I just caught like a glimpse of somebody doing their dishes, like a gal, and she was like, I was saying look up before, and she was looking down and so stressed about bills or something. This was like real life. And it sounds like something out of a movie, right? Where you kind of connect to the Matrix, right? And all of a sudden you kind of, and I just sensed her presence and her emotion. And I was like, somebody down there in my city right there. And I'm like, look up. If you don't believe in God or anything, I'll just go from that vantage point. Let's just say there is a God and you're in heaven. Well, the home in heaven that I saw, we're always connected. Like, we're always connected. We never felt alone. And when we come here and we have this, baby, we're born as babies. You forget everything. You're just like, what's going on? I don't even know if I'm hungry. Or you really look at babies. They don't know anything. And so you kind of get this fresh start, and you get to feel alone. You get to feel like not that constant connection. Even though it's always still here, you don't feel it. And sometimes we feel it to the point where we try to take our lives. Sometimes I've had friends that have taken their lives. I tried to take mine. I'm still here. The day that this happened, when I came in, I had all this new knowledge. My dog Scruffy was there, and I just walked home. I was in such a good mood. And I was writing all this stuff down. Like, literally every one of these, there's a TED Talk for every one of these. I walked in the house, and I told my dad, I said, Dad, it's done. It's gone. It's all gone. And I gotta go. And I went, and he told me today, I just went downstairs. He didn't see me again. I went down on this old computer. I was like, type this up, because like I said, my handwriting is horrible. My spelling's bad. And I'm like, believe it or not, I was not that great a student in high school. I think I graduated with a 1.7 or something. And so missed more days than I attended. Sorry to all my teachers. There's hope for that kid in your class, though. There's hope for him. Don't give up. Some of the things that I think about, the way I think about things is I don't look at like what in the Christian culture they call the 10 Commandments. I don't think about the 10 Commandments as restrictive. And I've taught my kids that. They say, oh, you go to that church, you guys don't drink. And my kids say, yeah, we get to not drink. Like, we get to be in an environment where we have our full faculties about us all the time. And we get to like trip out on life and go, whoa. Because honestly, I heard somebody say it. I don't know where it was, but he says, if you were really awake, you would be so amazed at every little thing that's happening around you right now. You'd be freaking out. You'd be like, oh, I got hands. So it'd be like really intense to actually look at reality just as what it's given. You don't need drugs for that. And so drugs actually dumb that down. And so the commandments and anything like that are non-restrictive. I don't have to be good. I get to be good. I don't have to be sober. I get to be sober. I don't have to think of the 10 Commandments. I don't have to not steal. I get to not steal. It's way more rewarding. I've done both. And you're empty at the end of stealing from your parents and stealing. It's a horrible, empty shell of a feeling. Thou shalt not covet what's thy neighbor's. That's a perk. It's all like a cheat code to really be happy. So, the message I've always kind of carried forward from my experience was two things. One is the CPR for your soul, which if you read the article, it's my method that I use to stay sober and kind of stay on track. I still get tempted. Is church is the C. I go every week. P is for pray. So I pray every day. I get on my knees. I don't say the prayer in my bed. And then R is read. And I learned this from a really awesome friend of mine. I'll just say his first name. It's Greg. And Greg, I hope you see this. You're an awesome guy. And if you do those things, the Lord, the other side, will give you strength when you're falling off that waterfall. They'll throw you a branch, okay? And the other thing was how lucky we are to be on earth and how amazing it is. And even the pain is actually very amazing to experience and to be a part of. And so, do I remember this every day, all day? Do I remember this when I'm freaking out? My life isn't going perfectly? No, I can't even remember. I get caught up way immersed into earth, and I just can't. I don't even remember half this stuff some days. And I'm like, but just kind of being able to reflect back on that knowledge is pretty amazing to have that perspective of, I know this will be over very soon for me. Not meaning that I don't know that I'll die early. That could mean even I die when I'm 98 years old. I don't know. But it will be very soon. Life goes very quickly. And I will be right back with those people and just home. We just go home. And I'm grateful that I got to, I didn't die in a car accident when I was, drinking and driving and things like that. I didn't die during those times. And I haven't, I'm still here. And I think I'm really grateful that I wasn't successful when I took my own life. And sometimes that pain is so much, it's unbearable. And you don't know that you can get out another way. You're just in this dark hole and you just rather kind of cancel that out. I mean, there was so much mercy for this ex-drug dealer, because I feel like that is a really low point in my life. And, just some foul things that I've been a part of and stealing and all this stuff. And, even that kid that might have broken into your car this weekend or something like that. And you come outside and you're like, man, what a worthless pile of crap that guy is. Well, maybe he turns out okay when the dust settles and he can get out of his addictions. And I think I do have more of that eye of hope and love for other people. It's not always, the lesson is sometimes very painful, but it's still just as big as a blessing. So it's really hard to see that sometimes. So the takeaway is that you should love everybody around you. You should love people who are a different political party than you. And, I think their races and everything is already gone without saying. And even if they're different, they identify as a different gender or different whatever else. I'd say we need to respect everybody because we don't know their path. You haven't walked in their shoes. You don't know why they're making the decision they do. And I already kind of know that we're all going to be in the same place when it's over. And we will look back on these experiences we had together, that we got to actually learn to love one another without judging each other so harshly. And that comes both ways. It's definitely something I think that is more tappable. You're able to tap more power from the other side than I think we understand. And so I think it would be, no, you don't have to check off 1,700 boxes, but I think you have to get to a place of purity, of presentness with your mind to be like, hey, I'm being real here. This is something that's plagued me. Stop beating yourself up once, you know what I'm saying, in that cycle of just self-doubt. Start believing in yourself. Go, I can change, and so what? I was still showing up, and then say, okay, maybe I can't change. And just get real with it and get all the help you can. I had a support team around me that I could be honest with. And but when it left me, it was gone. I don't have to do a 12-step right now. I didn't even have to do one after. I had to learn about 12-step after. So when I go to AA meetings now, I love it. I'm like, these are my people. But it's like, I really don't even, I kind of go to share, but it doesn't bother me. It's like, I think people on porn or cigarettes would be like, hey, if you've been stuck in porn, and I'm like, think about it, like, it doesn't even bug you. You're like, yeah, it doesn't bother me. You never have a real desire to do it again. And when it does kind of creep up, you're like, too many consequences. And you're logically like putting that together. You don't have to be stuck in it anymore. And it's to be free. I remember somebody telling me that. I remember actually sitting here, somebody telling me, yeah, you when you're free from it, you never want to do it again. I used to smoke too, and I was like, that would be a weird feeling. You're never gonna white knuckle it with the same information you have already. You gotta get new information. If you're ever saying this, if you ever say, well, I tried praying and I never got an answer, that means you've stopped praying, okay? Like, I tried. That means you've stopped. I tried working out and I don't have any muscles. I tried 3 years ago. I don't know what's going on. You know, this is 3. All right, that's all I got.
All right.
Unless you got any more questions.
No, I don't think I have any other questions. I do feel like it's a very singular experience. I've never really heard of anything like that before, and I'm sure you have many people to help. So I appreciate being a part of it and for you joining us today. Thank you.